The next widget we're going to look at is the interactive image. And by the name of the widget alone, it's a little bit difficult to foresee what this widget is going to do and how you can use it. So let's look at a few examples here from E.O. Wilson's Life on Earth. And I'm going to open up Unit 1. And here on page 12, we have two interactive images side by side. And you'll see an interactive image consists of a background image that's overlaid with call-out labels. And here, when we build this in iBooks Author, you'll be able to create as many labels as you want and put their little target bubbles here where you need to on your background image. And the way you navigate it is that you not only have a title for your call-out, but you also can have a more full description. You can navigate them either by hitting on the text boxes themselves or hitting the arrow buttons to proceed through all of them in order, or you can jump by hitting the numbers below. So this is a nice way of having an overview image and being able to include a number of labels on top. You can also view this image in full screen and navigate it the same way. So this makes the image quite large. In this case, these two interactive images were of a rather contextual image, that the callouts were not terribly specific. Let's look at another example in the book. In Unit 4, we use the callouts a little bit more precisely on the image. Here we used a comic book style to describe the fantastic voyage of a hormone. And you'll see that the user right away can take a look at the very colorful panels here, but learn more about each of the steps by clicking through and reading a more full description. We use that also in Chapter 21. This is also another sort of comic book style of the process of fertilization. Here's another example in Chapter 21, where this is one background image with 6 sort of internal panels, and we're able to describe the process of gastrulation with the labels. And finally, in Chapter 19, there is the body in the image behind, and we're able to more precisely use these call-out lines for the specific parts of the body that are involved here. So as you can see, it's a nice way to take a larger image, embed information, and it's almost like a little study card for your reader. We're going to go ahead and show how this is made using this endocrine gland map example. Okay, now let's recreate that interactive image in iBooks Author. Here we have a sample page, and we're going to pull down our widgets and find the interactive image icon here. Once we click it, again, just like all the other widgets, we have our empty widget. Let's go ahead and get it set up. We're going to just drag in our source image to start, and then we're going to open up from the inspector here, the last one, the widget inspector. You'll notice there's the layout as well as the interaction buttons that we're going to be setting up. So let's just quickly add in the things that we know we're going to be using, which is the title, the caption. We are not going to include the background, and we're going to be in the bottom layout. So that's the first general. Let's take a look. We also want to go to the interaction tab and include the transport controls. These are the ones we saw as we were looking at the examples of the arrows and the numbers to navigate from label to label. And you might be wondering what this is. Show descriptions in Sidebar. We are not going to use it, but let me just show you what it does. Is instead of on the zoom in, instead of having your description show in the call out button, if you do select descriptions in Sidebar, the zoom ins will have a larger area taking up sort of half of your window here to have the description. We are going to not click that for our purposes, but that is an option. Okay, and now we're able to just take a general look and start to put in our content and add a few labels. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get our titles in here. So we have the endocrine gland map. As our title. I'm going to just quickly style that as our figure title, and we have our description. And that's going to be here. Okay. Now, if we look at the image itself, you're probably wondering how we're going to size this. Let's go ahead and bring this down a little bit. And when you click on the image here, you'll notice that you'll have a slider which can size up your image. We're going to have settings on the default view here, and once you get it where you want it to be, we can press set view, and that's recording that zoom in of your image. And then we can navigate to each of these. Let's start by putting in some content here. Let's take a look at our book. So we're going to be putting in the hypothalamus and the adrenal glands just for two different locations in the body here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick number one. Oops, pick number one. Go ahead and pick number one and take our title. And when you go in here, you can simply double click and insert your content. And then when you have a content in there, you can have a sense of how wide you want to make it, where the line breaks happen, and in regards to the positioning. So let's just take a second look. It's going to be way up here. So what we're going to do is we can drag not only the labels and the destination callouts, but the zoom in of our image as well. We can size that up, and we can also position as necessary. Here we're looking up here. Okay. So we can zoom in a little bit more and position this like this. And press set view. And then for the second one, we've picked the adrenal glands. And let's see, just get an estimate on our view on this one. It's a little bit more zoomed in, so we can increase that size. There we go. Set view. And then we just put in our content. Okay. And then you can again pull this as necessary and make sure you've set that view. So now when you go to the overview, you can see how the zoom out looks there, and you can adjust these labels as necessary. And you can test it out. And there you go. In fact, we should probably take a look at this in the preview mode where we can see it in iBooks for desktop. And you'll remember here that not only can you navigate through, but you can also look at your image in full screen. And you want to test it out there to see if you want to make any adjustments. For example, this title area now covers the top of the image, which is something you might not want. The other thing to mention is at this size, when we were talking about preparing images before, we were saying that that for the full screen, depending on what kind of resolution of your iPad you have or what OS you're running, there are certain size requirements for full screen images to appear crisp and clean. So the maximum size you'll notice for the landscape retina running an iOS later than 6.1, 2048 by 1536 would be sort of the maximum size. However, when you're looking at your book, you'll notice that as we zoom in, depending on how far you've zoomed in, your image is going to be even larger than that. So you'll have to play around with it. Right now, this is not a terribly high resolution image, so you can start to see the fuzziness. Now, depending on your image and how sharp you need it to be, you're going to need to make adjustments to that. So take that into consideration as you test the book. So there you go. You have your interactive image, and as you're looking at your content, consider where there are opportunities to have an image that would really benefit from call-out labels and further descriptions.